He gave away his last $2 to a stranger slumped beside a gas station. No cameras, no applause. Just a desperate choice made from compassion. What he didn't know was that this single act would unleash 200 bikers, revive a broken town, and uncover a past he never expected to face again. This is the story of how kindness, quiet, unseen, and sacrificial, sparked a nationwide movement and gave one forgotten hero his life back. The late afternoon sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of a forgotten gas station off Highway 281, casting long shadows across the Texas plain. The wind, dry and restless, rattled the weathered signs and rusted pump handles like a whisper from the past. Adam Miller stood silently beside his beat-up 1997 Ford Ranger, its paint peeling and its bed packed with all he had left in the world. In his weathered hands, he held a small handful of change, 3 quarters, 2 nickels, and 2 worn $1 bills. The metal coins clinked softly as he counted them again, though he already knew the total. $2.85. Beside him, his 8-year-old daughter Maddie clutched a small, stuffed bear missing one eye. Her jeans were faded, and her white sneakers bore more dust than rubber, but her face shone with quiet hope. "Do we have enough for bread?" "Daddy," she asked, her brown eyes wide, her voice a whisper, like she was afraid to hope too much. Adam looked down at her and managed a soft smile. "We'll see what we can do, sweetheart." He gently brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, then closed his calloused fist around the coins and bills. Inside the gas station's convenience store, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzed above him like a persistent fly. A tired cashier with too much eyeliner and not enough patience barely glanced up as Adam surveyed the shelves. A day-old sandwich, a bottle of water, a half-smashed honey bun. He picked up the honey bun and held it to Maddie. Her eyes lit up. "Can we get 2?" he chuckled. "How about 1 and I'll share it with you?" She nodded and wrapped her arms around his waist. "You're the best, Daddy." Adam's smile faded as he stepped to the counter. The cashier rang up the pastry and a small bottle of water. $2.85, she said flatly. Adam placed his last remaining money on the counter. Not a cent left for tomorrow. As they stepped outside, the sky was already deepening into amber. Adam held the honey bun, carefully tearing it in 2 and handing Maddie the larger half. "Big bites, okay. We've got a long drive back to the motel." Maddie was about to answer when a deep guttural cough broke through the air. They turned toward the noise. Near the edge of the parking lot, a large man in black denim and leather sat, slumped over a dusty Harley Davidson. His long gray beard trembled as he gasped for breath. One hand gripped his chest, the other trembling over the handlebars. The chain around his neck swung violently as he tried to stay upright. A teenage gas station employee poked his head out the door. "Hey, leave him! Those biker dudes are trouble. He's probably drunk." Adam's eyes narrowed. No, this wasn't intoxication. It was something he'd seen too many times before. Tightness in the chest, cold sweat, skin pale beneath the beard. Maddie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, is he okay?" He was already moving. Adam rushed toward the biker, placing his hand firmly on the man's shoulder. "Sir, can you hear me? What's your name?" The biker barely nodded. "Dylan," he croaked. "Feels like a truck hit me." Adam knelt, calm overtaking him like an old reflex. His voice became clear, measured, precise. "You're having a cardiac event, Dylan. Stay with me." He glanced at the man's saddlebags empty. No water. No meds. Nothing. Adam turned to Maddie. "Honey, run to the truck. Grab the towel from the back seat and my old first aid kit." She sprinted. The teenage clerk was still watching. "I said don't get involved, man. He's one of the Hell's Angels or something." Adam ignored him. He pulled the bottle of water from Maddie's hand and uncapped it, holding it to the biker's lips. Dylan sipped, coughed, then gulped greedily. Adam gently pressed his fingers to the man's neck. The pulse was rapid, irregular. He needed aspirin, something to thin the blood. Maddie returned with the kit, breathless. Adam rifled through it. Bandages, a cracked tourniquet, a sealed packet of gauze. No meds. He looked down at the water in Dylan's hand, then back at the store. $2 wouldn't buy much, but maybe it could buy time. He stood, jogged back inside. "Where's the aspirin?" The cashier pointed lazily. "Third aisle." He found a travel pack, $1.29. He grabbed it and returned to the counter. "I need this. And another bottle of water." "Totals $2.81 torn," the cashier said, chewing gum. Adam laid down his last $2 bills. "This is all I've got." She shrugged. "Then pick one." He looked out the window. Dylan was slumped lower now. Maddie was holding his hand. Adam grabbed the aspirin and a water bottle. "Call 911, now." The woman protested, but he was already gone. He crushed 2 pills in his hand and slipped the powder into Dylan's water. "Drink this. Now." Dylan obeyed. Within minutes, the tightness in his chest began to ease. His eyes fluttered open, his breathing steadied. "You're okay," Adam whispered. "You're going to be okay." The faint wail of sirens echoed in the distance. Adam sat back on his heels, wiping sweat from his brow. Maddie leaned her head against his arm. "Is he gonna be all right?" Adam nodded. "I think so, sweetie." She looked up at him with quiet pride. "You're like a superhero." He gave a tired laugh. "Nah, just an old medic who remembers a thing or two." As the ambulance pulled into the lot and paramedics rushed to take over, Adam quietly stepped away, his empty wallet tucked into his back pocket. His hands were empty, but his heart was full. Night had fallen by the time Adam pulled into the cracked parking lot of the roadside motel. A single flickering neon sign buzzed overhead, casting dull red light across the hood of his battered truck. Room 6B, their temporary home for the past 9 nights. He killed the engine, and the silence hit like a wave. In the passenger seat, Maddie had fallen asleep, her sticky fingers still clutching the wrapper of the honey bun they'd shared hours ago. Her small frame rose and fell, gently beneath the thrift store denim jacket he used as a blanket. Even in sleep, she looked peaceful, like she didn't notice how close to the edge they really were. Adam sat for a moment staring at the dashboard. Gas less than a quarter tank. Food, none left. Cash, 0. Hope that was the tricky part. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a tattered leather-bound notebook. Its corners were frayed, its pages yellowed. On the front, embossed in faded gold, were the words, "Field Medic Log, Delta Force Unit 731, a relic from a life that felt like someone else's." He opened to a blank page and began to write in sharp, steady strokes, "Day 38 since layoff. Last $2 spent. Saved 1 life today." Maddie smiled twice, laughed once. That's the real victory. He paused and looked over at her sleeping face. How many times had he patched up broken bodies under fire, wrapped tourniquets on limbs still warm with life, pulled shrapnel from soldiers too young to shave, and yet, for all his training, he'd never learned how to fix his own future. No one teaches you how to come home. He turned to the inside flap of the notebook, where a single folded letter lived, creased, yellowed, and stained at the corners. He unfolded it gently, as he had dozens of times before. It was her handwriting. "Laura, my dearest Adam. If you're reading this, it means you're facing something heavy, something unfair. Maybe the world's turned cold again. Maybe someone told you you're not enough. But I know better. I know the man who held my hand when I couldn't breathe through the contractions. I know the medic who carried 3 soldiers through mortar fire without blinking. I know the father who sang lullabies in hotel bathrooms because our heater didn't work that winter in Georgia. So, if today hurts, don't harden. Don't shut down. Give someone a piece of your heart anyway, even if it's all you've got left. Because if you can be kind when the world is cruel, that's when you're truly strong. Always yours, Laura. Adam swallowed hard and folded the letter back into its place. He traced the edges of the notebook, grounding himself. The memory of her voice echoed in his ears, warm and steady like a fire in winter. She had passed 3 years ago, cancer, quick and cruel, but her presence never left. It was in Maddie's laugh, in the way the wind felt when it caught the trees just right. In the way Adam still looked people in the eye, even when the world refused to look back. He gently opened the truck door and stepped out into the chill night air. Crickets chirped somewhere beyond the highway. A few cars rolled by in the distance, their headlights momentary stars in the darkness. He walked to the edge of the parking lot where the motel's wooden fence leaned like an old man needing rest. Beyond it, a stretch of dry fields shimmered under the moonlight. He let out a slow breath. "Still standing, Laura," he murmured. "Still fighting. Still trying to be the man you believed I was." The door of the truck creaked open behind him. Tiny footsteps padded across gravel. "Daddy." He turned. Maddie stood there, rubbing her eyes, her bear dangling from one hand. "Couldn't sleep," she mumbled. Adam scooped her up into his arms, resting her on his hip like when she was younger. "Me neither," he said softly. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Did you help that man today?" "I tried." "Did it work?" Adam paused. "Yeah, I think it did." She was quiet a moment, then said, "You didn't have to give him your water, you know." "I know. But you did anyway." He kissed her forehead. "Sometimes the right thing isn't what's easy, or what's safe. It's just what you'd want someone to do for you, if you were the one hurting." Maddie nodded as if that made all the sense in the world, and maybe to her it did. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. He blinked once, twice, then whispered, "Me too, sweetheart." They stood together under the stars, a man and his daughter wrapped in a silence that wasn't empty, but full of memory, of loss, of love, and above all, full of belief. Adam carried her back inside and tucked her into bed. He placed her bare beside her, pulled the thin blanket up to her chin, and whispered a promise only the darkness would hear. "I'll figure it out. Somehow." Then, as he turned off the bedside lamp, he caught sight of the empty water bottle sitting on the nightstand, the one from earlier. He stared at it for a long moment. A $2 bottle of water, a stranger's life saved, a child's trust kept. And for the first time in weeks, Adam allowed himself the smallest, quietest flicker of hope. The next morning, Adam stood outside room 6B, with a half-filled mug of motel coffee, thin, bitter, and scalding, just the way most things were lately. The sky was pale and tired, like it hadn't slept well. A distant rumble of semi-trucks rolled through the highway fog as if the world itself was slowly waking. Maddie sat cross-legged on the hood of the truck, her backpack open and legs swinging. She was carefully sorting her 3 colored pencils, sharpening them with a plastic knife. Adam smiled to himself. No crayons left, but she still found a way to draw. She always did. Inside his chest, however, the pressure of the day had already begun to mount. The overdue motel bill, the application for the warehouse job he hadn't heard back from, the can of beans they had left for lunch. He took a sip and opened his phone to scroll job boards again. Then a voice rang out behind him. "Hey, man, you're on the news." Adam turned. The motel manager, Todd, a round, red-faced man in cargo shorts, stood on the stairs, holding his tablet high. "Channel 7, that gas station out on 281. You saved some biker dude yesterday." Adam froze. On the screen was grainy security footage, him kneeling over the man Maddie standing nearby. A banner beneath read, "Good Samaritan saves biker's life with last $2 leaves without a name." Another guest nearby muttered, "That's him." The guy in the army jacket, Todd snorted. Guy must be crazy. Who gives their last $2 to a Hell's Angel? Adam's jaw tensed. He's not a Hell's Angel, Maddie said, suddenly hopping down from the truck. Her voice was small but fierce. He was just sick. And my daddy saved him? Todd blinked, clearly unsure how to respond to an 8-year-old standing her ground. Adam stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. That's enough, honey. But Maddie wasn't done. My dad was in the army. He used to save people all the time. Now he saves people without even getting paid. She looked around at the small crowd that had gathered outside the motel rooms. He gave his last money to help someone, and you're making fun of him. Silence. Adam knelt down beside her. Maddie. No, she whispered, eyes glassy. They don't know you, Daddy. But I do. You're a hero. You always have been. Adam's breath caught in his throat. He stood slowly shielding her from the crowd with his body. We've got somewhere to be, he said quietly, and guided her back toward the truck. Inside the cab, the air felt heavy. Maddie stared out the window, arms crossed, her mood stormy. Adam put the key in the ignition but didn't start it. You okay? He asked softly. She shrugged. He turned toward her. Hey, you don't have to defend me. Yes, I do, she said. Because you won't. Adam blinked. You always let people talk bad about you. At the shelter. At school. At the diner. You just look down and say nothing. Like maybe you believe them? Maddie. I don't want to be quiet anymore, she said, lip trembling. You saved someone's life yesterday, and people are laughing like it was dumb. Adam sighed and looked away, hands tightening on the steering wheel. I'm just tired, sweetheart. Of what? Of trying to prove who I am. There was a long pause. Then Maddie said something he didn't expect. You don't have to prove it to the world, Daddy. Just to yourself. He looked at her. She looked back, innocent but certain. In that moment, Adam felt something shift. He'd been carrying a weight that wasn't just poverty or grief. It was the exhaustion of trying to be seen, to be understood. Maybe Maddie was right. Maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe it never had been. He started the engine. All right, he said. Let's go job hunting again. They drove into town. A second-hand clothing store had posted a "Help Wanted" sign. Adam parked and told Maddie to wait in the truck. Inside, the manager barely glanced at his application before muttering, We're looking for someone younger, more approachable. Approachable. The word hit like a brick. Adam stepped out, the rejection burning quietly in his chest. Maddie looked up at him hopefully. He just shook his head. 3 more places. 3 more will call you. By midday, Adam was slumped on a bench outside the town library. His boots were dusty, his spirit even dustier. Maddie sat beside him, drawing on the back of a receipt with her colored pencil. I drew you, she said, holding up the sketch. It was crude but beautiful. Her father kneeling beside a biker, a water bottle in one hand, hope in the other. She had written in big letters, My dad saves people. Adam didn't speak, but his heart did. Loud and clear. That night, as he tucked Maddie into bed, he lingered longer than usual. She was already half asleep when she mumbled, Daddy. Yeah, baby. Would you still help someone, even if you had nothing? He stroked her hair. That's when it matters most. She smiled and drifted off. Adam sat by the window of their motel room, staring at the dark outline of the road beyond. He thought of the biker. Dylan. He hadn't expected thanks. He certainly hadn't expected fame. But still, something about the moment felt unfinished, like a page left unturned. Outside, a soft breeze stirred the curtains. The town was quiet. But deep in Adam's bones, something told him the story wasn't over. Not yet. The knock came just before dawn. Not the hesitant kind from motel staff asking about payment. Not the heavy-fisted kind that meant trouble, but a slow, deliberate knock, 3 firm raps, like someone sure of what they came for. Adam's eyes snapped open. He'd barely slept, perched in the old armchair next to the window with his boots still on. Instinct pulled him to his feet. Years in combat did that to you. Sleep light, move fast. Always listen to the knock. He reached for his jacket draped over the chair, slipped it on quietly, and moved toward the door without turning on the light. Maddie stirred in bed. "Daddy, stay here, sweetheart," he whispered. "Don't get up." He approached the door, eyeing the peephole, then froze. Beyond the distorted glass, a wall of leather chrome and exhaust. Bikers. Not 2, not 3. More than 20 just in the line of sight. Their silhouettes stretched across the lot in the early orange haze of sunrise. Engines, idle chrome glinting. Some wore vests, others leaned against bikes. A sea of black beards, tattoos, and silent presence. A symphony of intimidation for anyone who hadn't seen real battle. But Adam didn't open the door out of fear. He opened it out of curiosity. And because, deep down, something told him this wasn't war. This was a reckoning. He turned the handle and pulled the door open. Maddie had crept quietly to the bed's edge, watching with wide eyes. The man standing in front of the door was unmistakable. Dylan Archer. Cleaned up since the gas station, though his beard was still wild and wind-burned. His leathers looked worn like history, but his eyes were clear, now sharp, alive, and locked onto Adam's with unsettling familiarity. In his hand, Dylan held a small object. It was the same water bottle from 2 days ago, empty, now slightly dented. He held it with care like it was holy. "You remember me?" Dylan asked, his gravelly voice gentler than expected. Adam gave a single nod. "Didn't expect to see you again." "You saved my life with this," Dylan said, raising the bottle. "With $2, and the kind of instinct that doesn't come from textbooks." He stepped forward and offered the bottle to Adam. Adam took it slowly, unsure what to say. Behind Dylan, more bikes had arrived. They lined both sides of the narrow street. Now chrome beasts rumbling low, their riders stoic in the morning fog. Easily over 100. Maybe more. A woman stepped out of room 7 next door, dropped her coffee and gasped. Somewhere, a car alarm chirped from the tremor of engines. "Who are they?" Maddie whispered from behind him. Adam didn't answer. He looked back to Dylan, who now gestured grandly to the sea of bikes. "This," Dylan said, "is Riders of Grace." Adam raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like a contradiction." Dylan chuckled. "Ain't it? We're all former service, veterans, medics, a few who took wrong turns after discharge. A lot of us ended up with bad patches, long records, rough years. But we got tired of being angry. So we ride, and we fix things. We build homes, bring food, help other vets find their way back." Adam's gaze softened. "And you're their leader. I'm just the old dog with the loudest pipes," Dylan said, smirking. "But yeah, I started it." A long pause settled between them. Not awkward, just full. Then Dylan stepped back and raised his voice so all could hear. 2 days ago, I was on the side of the road, dying. No wallet, no ID, no allies. He turned to face the crowd. "This man right here gave me water, bought me aspirin, used his last $2 knowing full well he might need it for his daughter. He did it without asking who I was, without caring what patch I wore." He turned back to Adam. "You could have walked away. Most would have. But you didn't." Then in one swift motion, Dylan dropped to one knee and extended his hand. "Let us return the favor." Gasps erupted from bystanders. A biker kneeling, Adam looked down stunned. Not by the gesture, but by the sincerity. It wasn't theater. It wasn't ego. It was respect. Maddie ran to the doorway, her tiny fingers gripping the frame. Daddy! More bikers stepped off their Harleys and lined the sidewalk. Boxes emerged from saddlebags. Others wheeled out covered carts. One biker opened the back of a matte black truck. Inside were crates of food shelves of children's books and tools. A second biker rolled forward a gleaming motorcycle military green mat, finished the emblem of a Delta unit stenciled on the side. On the seat was a plaque that read, Delta 1. For Adam Miller. Adam stood frozen. The weight of what was unfolding hit harder than any explosion he'd survived overseas. I didn't do it for thanks, he said quietly. Dylan rose to his feet and leaned in. Good. That means you earned it. Another biker handed Adam an envelope. Inside a job offer from a veterans training center, a starting bonus, and a house deed modest but real. Maddie's eyes widened. Is that for us? Adam stared at the paper like it might disappear if he blinked. He turned to Dylan. Why me? Because one man's kindness, Dylan said, is the spark for 200 engines to ride. Then with one hand on Adam's shoulder, he added, You gave me $2 and a second chance. Let us give you your life back. And for the first time in years, Adam Miller had no words. Only tears. Only awe. And the quiet, humbling weight of a life finally being lifted. The rumble of engines still lingered in the air as the sun began its slow rise above the rooftops, casting long golden beams over the parked Harleys and silent crowd. Birds hadn't even started singing yet, but somehow this moment, this unlikely gathering, felt holy. Adam stood at the center of it, all the water bottles still in his hand, now more symbol than container. Maddie clung to his arm, her eyes wide in wonder. Daddy, are they staying? Dylan turned toward her and offered a soft smile. Not just staying, little lady. We came to work, and with that he raised 2 fingers into the air. The reaction was immediate. Bikers who moments earlier looked like trouble in leather broke formation with stunning discipline. A half-dozen moved to unload crates from side-mounted trailers. Others rolled out a mobile grill, a first aid tent, and a set of foldable workbenches. Several women, also in patched vests, began organizing supplies into neat rows on the motel lawn. The transformation was breathtaking. What had looked like a biker invasion now resembled a small, efficient humanitarian camp. Adam watched in stunned silence. Dylan stepped closer. We don't just ride for the thrill, we ride for purpose. These folks, they've rebuilt storm-damaged homes in Mississippi, ran food banks in Amarillo, even helped clean up after floods in Tennessee. Adam blinked. But they're bikers. We're veterans, Dylan corrected. The bikes are just how we find our way back. Adam looked down at the Delta 1 motorcycle parked beside him, his old unit's logo perfectly painted in faded olive and steel. His throat tightened. You knew I was military? I didn't. At first, Dylan said, eyes darkening with memory. But when I was going under, when my chest felt like it was tearing open, it was the way your hand pressed down. Firm, flat 2 fingers above the sternum. That's not something civilians do. That's battlefield training. Adam stayed quiet. Dylan glanced sideways. You served where Iraq, twice, 2005 and 2008. Forward operating base far south. Delta Force Med Evac unit. Dylan's brow lifted. No kiddin', I was Iraq too. Fallujah, 1998. Before it got worse. Different war, same heat. A beat passed. Then Dylan added more softly. Sometimes I think the sand followed us home. Adam gave a tight nod. Both men stood there, unspeaking, letting the silence say what years of paperwork and medals never could. They were brothers, not by blood, but by burden. Dylan motioned toward the others. Every one of them out there carries ghosts, some more than others. PTSD, divorce, jail time. We lost a few along the way. But when one of us rises, we ride behind him. He turned back to Adam. That's what you did for me. You didn't just give me water. You reminded me I was worth saving." Just then, a shout rose from the crowd. "Yo, D. It's ready." Dylan waved them off, then turned back to Adam. "We brought something else." He gestured toward the flatbed truck now parked in the motel lot. Its ramp dropped with a heavy clang, revealing a sleek, modular housing unit, fresh paint solar panel on top, flower box on the window. "Temporary setup," Dylan explained, "but livable. Running water. Bed. Kitchenette. Bought and built by Riders of Grace. Yours if you want it." Adam's voice caught. I can't accept that." "You can," Dylan said gently. "Because you earned it. And because Maddie shouldn't have to grow up watching her father carry the world alone." Adam's jaw clenched at the mention of her name. Maddie ran forward, already exploring the tiny home, pressing her nose against the window. "There's a bunk bed," she shouted, "and a table we can actually eat at." Adam exhaled, his defenses weakening. Dylan leaned closer, his tone shifting. "There's something else." He reached into his vest and pulled out a crumpled envelope. Its edges were worn. Carefully, reverently, he opened it, removing a folded paper. His voice lowered. "Years ago, my kid brother was in Iraq. Took shrapnel to the chest during an ambush. They called in med-evac, but he nearly didn't make it. The medic stabilized him long enough for extraction. That medic didn't make it back to base." Adam's breath hitched. He didn't want to ask. Dylan continued, eyes locked on the paper. In my brother's notebook, he scribbled one name before they put him under Miller. A. Saved me. Adam closed his eyes. Dylan handed him the paper. "I've been carrying this for 15 years, hoping to meet that medic's family someday. Turns out I met him instead." Adam opened the page, his own handwriting fast, efficient half-code scrawled across a casualty card from the battlefield. He looked up, stunned. "I remember him," he whispered. "Young. Blonde. Barely 20. He'd been hit bad, but he kept whispering something about making it home for Thanksgiving." Dylan's throat bobbed. He did. And he lived long enough to hold his first child before cancer took him 2 years later. Both men stood frozen in the weight of the moment. "You didn't just save me at that gas station," Dylan said quietly. "You saved my brother a lifetime ago. We've been circling each other ever since." Adam stared at the card, as if time itself had folded in on this very moment. A full circle. A debt repaid. A bond rediscovered. From somewhere in the distance, the unmistakable roar of 200 engines igniting filled the air. A few nearby bikers whooped, raising helmets in the air like flags of victory. Dylan smiled. "You saved me once. Let me return the favor." Adam looked back at his daughter, who was now inside the tiny home pressing imaginary buttons on a stovetop. His voice was low. "Okay." Dylan nodded. "Welcome to the Brotherhood." The sun was rising in earnest, now splashing amber light across the street, like a painter with no patience. Chrome shimmered on motorcycle tanks. Leather vests rustled in the breeze. And on the cracked concrete outside, room 6B, Adam Miller stood as the center of a miracle he never asked for, but perhaps had always deserved. It began with a low mechanical hum. Then the slow hiss of hydraulic brakes. A semi-truck, matte black with the Riders of Grace emblem painted across its trailer, pulled into the lot. The back door opened with a clang, and 2 bikers rolled down a massive steel ramp. At first, Adam thought it was just another crate of supplies, until the tarp came off. His breath caught. It was a motorcycle. But not just any motorcycle. A custom-built Harley-Davidson deep military green with matte finish, subtle tan trim, and an emblem on the side that stopped him cold, the insignia of his old Delta Force med-evac unit. On the fuel tank was stenciled Delta 1, but that wasn't all. On the leather seat embossed into the saddle was a name, Adam Miller. He didn't move for several seconds. His eyes traced every curve of the bike, military-style handlebars, reinforced frame, combat-style saddlebags, even a compartment with a folded American flag inside. Everything about it whispered home. Dylan approached quietly from behind. Took 3 weeks to build. Every piece donated by someone who once wore a uniform. "She's yours, brother." Adam's throat was tight. "I don't know what to say." "Say thank you," Dylan said with a half grin. "Then take her for a ride when you're ready. We don't give charity. We honor service. This is our salute." Before Adam could reply, another biker stepped forward carrying a thick envelope. "This one's from headquarters." Inside, Adam found a job offer, official letterhead Veterans Center seal at the top. The role Trauma Recovery Coordinator and Peer Mentor. A position designed for someone like him. A salary, health care, dignity. The second sheet was even harder to process. A deed. A modest single-story house in a nearby town fully paid in a community built by and for veterans raising families. "Move-in ready." Maddie peeked over his arm, reading as her mouth fell open. "We have a real house," she whispered. Adam knelt beside her, emotion barely contained. "We might, sweetheart. But I thought we were staying in the motel forever." He laughed, soft and shaking. "Me too." She looked at the motorcycle, the crowd, the paperwork. Is all of this because of the water? Adam looked her in the eyes. "No. This is because of what comes after you give the water. It's about who you choose to be when no one's watching." She hugged him tight. "I'm glad you were watching." A voice broke the moment, deep, steady, commanding. "I believe this belongs to you." Adam turned. A female rider stood there holding something bundled in cloth. She was tall, lean, with gray streaks in her dark hair, and a scar running across her right cheek, earned not survived. On her jacket patch, Riders of Grace, founding chapter. She unwrapped the cloth. Inside was Adam's old field medallion, the one he'd lost years ago during a dust storm extraction in Iraq. On the back, the words, "Hold the line," were etched beneath a faded date. "I don't understand," Adam said, stunned. She smiled. "One of our members was there. Kept this after you were airlifted out. Didn't know your name until yesterday." She placed it in his hand. For a man who had lost almost everything, wife, homework, direction, this moment felt like gaining something deeper than possessions. It was recognition. Not by the world, but by those who mattered. The ones who carried scars in silence. The ones who still stood. Just then, a group of bikers pulled back the tarp on a separate trailer. Inside were shelves lined with canned food toiletries, blankets, toys, and clothes. Maddie's eyes went wide at the sight of a purple backpack with sparkles and a matching lunchbox. "For your daughter," the woman said, "and for the other kids we meet next. Because kindness grows when we pass it forward." The final moment came quietly. Dylan reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small square tin. Inside was a pin, simple silver, shaped like an eagle gripping a lightning bolt, surrounded by a laurel wreath. He handed it to Adam. "We only give this to riders who've earned our deepest respect. It's not for service, not for medals. It's for character." He pinned it onto Adam's jacket collar. Maddie stared up at her father with something more than love. It was awe. Adam stood tall, shoulders back, not with pride, but peace. He looked around. These men and women hadn't just shown up to give him things. They had shown up to remind him he wasn't alone. And in a world where quiet heroes go unnoticed, sometimes that reminder was the greatest gift of all. The following morning, the streets of Pine Bluff looked different. It wasn't just the line of Harleys that remained parked in quiet formation along Maple Avenue. It wasn't the curious glances from people peeking through lace curtains or sipping coffee on their porches. It was something subtler, a tension shifting, a narrative cracking. And at the center of that shift stood Adam Miller, sleeves rolled up, paintbrush in hand, repainting the old fence outside the rundown motel. The same fence the manager Todd had yelled about 2 days ago. The one Adam had promised he'd fix before the weekend. Not that anyone believed him. Now he wasn't alone. 2 bikers knelt beside him, patching holes in the wood. Another had climbed onto the roof with a toolbox and a mission. One was helping a frail woman unload groceries across the street, and a younger rider was calmly helping Maddie draw chalk hearts on the sidewalk. None of them were being paid. None of them were looking for attention, but they were being watched. From the bakery, from the gas station, from the window of the city clerk's office. A quiet reckoning was underway. By mid-morning, the town's local Facebook page was ablaze. Is this a gang? What are they doing here? I saw one help Mr. Cartwright fix his porch step. He's been waiting for the city to fix that for months. Wait, did that biker group just bring books to the school library? Hold on. Isn't that the same guy who gave his last $2 to save someone? It only took a few hours for judgment to give way to curiosity. Then something else happened. Mrs. Evelyn Cooper, an 83-year-old widow, known for her sharp tongue and sharper opinions, walked straight up to the worksite in her lavender cardigan and orthopedic shoes. She eyed Adam with the scrutiny of a woman who'd spent decades guarding her porch like it was sacred ground. "You're the man from the news," she said. Adam straightened, sweat on his brow. "Yes, ma'am." Adam Miller. She looked past him at the bikers fixing the fence. "I thought you were trouble." Adam didn't flinch. You wouldn't be the first. Mrs. Cooper studied him for a long beat. Then, to everyone's surprise, she reached into her bag and pulled out 2 mason jars of homemade lemonade. One for Adam, one for Maddie. She turned to go, then paused. "For what it's worth, Mr. Miller, I'm glad I was wrong." As she walked away, Dylan whistled from the ladder above. "Well, I'll be damned. That's the Pine Bluff equivalent of a standing ovation." Adam chuckled. "She didn't throw it at me. That's already progress." But the most unexpected moment came just before noon. Todd, the motel manager who had scoffed at Adam, mocked the bikers, and tried to evict them, twice emerged from his office with a grimace. He held something awkwardly in both hands, a new room key, and a typed letter of apology. Todd cleared his throat. "We upgraded you and Maddie to room 12. Bigger, quieter, no charge." Adam raised an eyebrow. "What changed?" Todd scratched his head. "My wife. She saw the news. Said if I didn't make this right, she'd let the dog sleep in my bed instead of me." He handed over the key. "I misjudged you, man. We all did." Adam took the key and nodded. "Appreciate it." Todd hesitated. "Hey, listen. If you ever need part-time work, we could use someone to help manage maintenance. That roof leak's older than my marriage." Adam didn't promise anything, but he smiled. And that was enough. That evening, the riders held a cookout in the vacant lot next to the community church. Word spread fast. People came cautiously at first, curious, skeptical, maybe even a little embarrassed by their earlier assumptions. But as the grills fired up and music floated into the warm evening air, something rare and beautiful unfolded. Kids played cornhole with bikers. Teenagers asked about motorcycle engines. Veterans, some quiet for decades, finally opened up swapping stories of service, with men who understood. And at the center of it all, Adam stood in his olive green jacket, watching Maddie laugh with a group of girls her age for the first time in weeks. A man who had once felt invisible now belonged. A woman approached him. Lila Green, the local librarian. "Mr. Miller." "Yes." "We're planning a Veterans Day event next month. Would you consider speaking?" Adam shook his head. "I'm not much for speeches," she smiled. That's why you're perfect. People are tired of polished words. They want someone real. Before he could answer, Maddie ran up and grabbed his hand. Daddy, they want you to tell the story about the biker and the water. The crowd was already looking his way. Dylan grinned from the grill. Go on, Delta One. Tell them how it started. Adam looked down at his daughter, then out at the gathering. He cleared his throat. It's a simple story, really. Silence fell. I was broke, tired, down to $2 and no plan. And I saw a man in need. I didn't know his name. I didn't know who he'd been. I just knew he needed help. He paused. So I gave him the only thing I could. He held up the empty water bottle, now clean and gleaming like glass. This. A beat. And it turns out, that was enough. The crowd clapped, not thunderous, but heartfelt. Like they weren't just applauding a man. They were applauding themselves for remembering what kindness looked like. Later that night, as the fire pit crackled and Maddie fell asleep beside him, Adam looked around the quiet circle of riders and neighbors. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a guest in his own life. He felt like he had come home. The diner sat quietly at the edge of town, an old A-frame relic with chipped blue paint and a flickering neon sign that read, Betty's Place. It was the kind of joint that smelled like overcooked bacon and stories that never made the paper. Adam sat in a corner booth, sunlight casting long shadows through slatted blinds. He stirred his black coffee, slowly lost in thought. Across from him, Dylan Archer looked different today. Clean denim, freshly oiled boots, beard combed, no vest, no patches, just a man with something to say. He hadn't spoken much since they sat down. Adam finally broke the silence. You said there was something you needed to show me? Dylan nodded, pulled a weathered envelope from his inside jacket pocket, and placed it on the table like a confession. This came into my hands 15 years ago, he said, quietly. I never knew what to do with it. Until now. The envelope was military standard issue, yellowed with age, sealed with a brittle piece of clear tape. On the front, written in block letters, to the medic who tried to save him. Adam's chest tightened. Dylan took a slow breath. My kid brother Jason. He was 21 when he deployed to Iraq. Young, full of fire. Got himself caught in an ambush in Fallujah. The evac bird came in late. He was bleeding bad when they brought him to the forward line. They told us some Delta medic held pressure for 20 straight minutes under fire. Adam's fingers curled around his coffee cup. I remember, he said. He wouldn't let go of the photograph in his hand. A girl, blonde hair. Said he had a promise to get home. Dylan smiled sadly. That was his high school sweetheart. They married the month he got back. Had a baby girl. He lived just long enough to meet her. Adam's eyes lifted. He survived for a while, Dylan said. Cancer took him 3 years later. Not from war. From something in the air, maybe. But he made it home because of you. He slid the envelope closer. Jason wrote this before he passed. Said, if he never found your name, I should hold on to it until fate found a way. Adam hesitated, then opened the letter. The handwriting was shaky but intentional. Dear medic, I don't know your name. I don't even know if you made it out alive. But I want you to know. You gave me more than minutes. You gave me a future. You gave me my wife's arms. My daughter's first cry. Thanksgiving dinner with my mom. 1,000 little things that would have never happened without you. There's no medal for what you did. No headline. Just a quiet, tired man who stayed when others might have run. Thank you. I hope you find peace someday. I hope someone gives back to you what you gave to me. With everything I have left, Jason Archer. Adam didn't speak. Couldn't. The words clung to his ribs like breath withheld too long. He blinked once, then again, the letter blurring in his hands. Dylan cleared his throat, voice rough. You saved him. And now somehow you saved me too. That day at the gas station, I wasn't just out of water. I was out of purpose. He leaned forward steady. I thought Riders of Grace was my redemption. Turns out it was just the bridge to this moment. Adam folded the letter carefully, holding it with reverence. I didn't do anything special, he murmured. Yes, you did, Dylan said. You stayed. A long silence passed, filled only with the clink of forks and distant country music humming through dusty speakers. Then Dylan reached into his jacket again and placed a small black box on the table. This belonged to Jason. He wanted whoever saved him to have it. Inside was a silver medic's cross on a leather chain military issue, engraved with 3 words: Stay, fight, heal. Adam stared at it, his hand trembling slightly as he picked it up. He said, "You didn't just stop the bleeding," Dylan added. "You gave him back time. And now, you've given me the same." Adam placed the chain around his neck. It rested over his heart, heavy and light at the same time. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "You don't need to," Dylan said, finishing his coffee and sliding out of the booth. "Some debts repay themselves when we least expect." He paused at the door. "Oh, and one more thing. That little girl he wrote about. She just turned 15. Smart. Kind. Plays violin. She wants to volunteer at a veteran center this summer." Adam smiled, eyes misting. "Tell her I said thank you." Later that evening, Adam sat outside the tiny home provided by the Riders, watching Maddie chase fireflies under a purpling sky. He fingered the chain around his neck, the letter tucked safely in his jacket pocket. Maddie skipped over. "What you thinking about?" He smiled. Old friends. New beginnings. She leaned against him, head resting on his arm. "Daddy." "Yeah, do you believe in miracles?" He thought for a long time. "I believe in people," he said at last. "And sometimes, people are the miracle." As the stars emerged overhead one by one, Adam felt something he hadn't felt in years. Closure. But more than that, continuity. The kind that weaves strangers into family rescues, into legacies, and $2 into a chain reaction no one could have scripted. And in that still sacred moment, the past didn't feel like a burden anymore. It felt like a bridge. The sky that morning was overcast, the kind of gray that dulled even the bravest colors. Clouds hung low and heavy like the heavens were holding their breath. Adam Miller stood in front of a full-length mirror inside the newly gifted tiny home. He wore his old service jacket, faded olive green, worn at the elbows, with the Delta Force Med-Evac patch still clinging to the shoulder like a ghost that never left. On his chest rested the silver medic's cross that Dylan had given him the day before. It felt right. Earned. Whole. Outside, the low rumble of motorcycles idled in respectful silence. Maddie stood on her toes to fix his collar. "You look strong," she said with pride. Adam smiled faintly. "Thanks, kiddo. Today's not easy, but it's important." "Is this about the letter?" He nodded. "It's about a promise I didn't even know I made." They rode together, just the two of them on the gifted Harley Delta One, with Maddie seated snug behind her father arms, wrapped around his waist, her chin resting on his shoulder. No other noise accompanied them, except the wind and the quiet thunder of tires over pavement. Behind them, a procession followed. Dozens of Riders of Grace. No engines revving. No loud music. Just silent steel horses moving with reverence through the streets of Pine Bluff. The destination, the State Veterans Cemetery, an hour outside of town. When they arrived, Adam pulled into a small side lane that curved gently toward an older section of the grounds. Rows of white gravestones stood like soldiers, at rest, their names etched in dignity. Dylan was already waiting at one of them, hat in hand, head bowed. As Adam and Maddie approached, Dylan straightened and stepped aside. The headstone was simple humble. Jason Archer, 1983, 2011, beloved son, husband, father, brother. He held on. A single plastic vase at the base held a fading bouquet of yellow roses. Adam stood silently for a long time. His hand brushed the cool top of the headstone, and his eyes fell shut. "I didn't save him," he said softly. "Not all the way." Dylan's voice was gentle but firm. "Yes, you did. You gave him back to us, even for a short time. That counts more than you know." Adam knelt down. From the side pocket of his jacket, he removed the old dented water bottle, the same one that had started it all. He placed it gently at the base of the stone. Then, from around his neck, he unfastened the silver medic's cross. It rested momentarily in his hand, warm from his skin. Then he placed it beside the bottle. "For what it's worth," he said, voice low. "I didn't forget him. I just never knew his name. Until now." A breeze stirred the leaves overhead. The clouds shifted slightly, letting through a sliver of pale light. Maddie stepped forward, clutching a small drawing she'd made Jason in a military uniform standing with an angel behind him. She tucked it beneath the flowers. "For his daughter," she said. Dylan blinked rapidly. She'd love that. Then, in a moment of unscripted grace, all the riders behind them removed their helmets and stood in silence. No speeches, no salutes, just presence. Because sometimes that was enough. As they rode back into town that afternoon, Adam felt different, lighter, like something had been put to rest, not just for Jason, but for himself. For years he had walked with the weight of what he couldn't save. Today he remembered what he did. Later that evening, back at the tiny home, Adam sat outside on the front steps, a cup of hot tea in hand. The sun had returned, burning away the gray. Birds sang in nearby trees. Maddie played barefoot on the grass, braiding wildflowers into a makeshift crown. Dylan joined him, sitting beside him with 2 cold sodas in hand. "You okay?" he asked. Adam nodded. "I think I'm more than okay." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the world go on. Then Dylan spoke. "There's something I've learned from all this. Something simple." Adam turned toward him. Redemption doesn't always come in one grand moment. Sometimes it comes in tiny pieces. A water bottle, a handshake, a kid's drawing. You keep showing up with kindness until one day you realize you're not carrying the guilt anymore. Adam looked out at Maddie as she twirled in the sunflower crown, slipping sideways. "She's my redemption," he said. "Every day." Dylan smiled. "Then you've already made it back home." The 2 men clinked their bottles together. No toast, just understanding. That night, Adam wrote in his old field notebook for the first time in weeks. Day 41 since layoff. "Today, I laid a ghost to rest. Not with medals, not with words, but with presence. And I saw my daughter smile without worry. That's the closest thing to victory I've ever known." He paused, pen hovering. Then he added, "I used to think the battlefield was behind me. But I've come to learn some of the hardest wars are fought in silence. And some of the bravest soldiers are little girls who believe their dads are heroes." The first thing Adam noticed when he stepped into the Veteran Recovery Center was the smell, sawdust, fresh paint, and strong black coffee. It wasn't fancy. No polished floors or state-of-the-art machines, just concrete exposed beams and rows of long workbenches lined with woodworking tools, donated laptops, and stacks of metal parts waiting for second lives. It felt real. And that made all the difference. A hand-painted sign hung near the entrance, written in block letters, "The Workshop of Hope, where hands heal the heart." Adam adjusted the collar of his jacket and looked around. He'd only been on the job for 2 days, but already he saw the shape of something bigger, forming something stronger than steel or oak. Purpose, belonging, brotherhood reborn not in battle, but in the quiet rhythm of building something together. Morning boss said Ray, a lanky Vietnam vet with shaky hands and a grin that never quite quit. The new kid's in Bay 3, says he don't like talking, just wants to weld. Adam smiled. Then give him a welder and let the sparks fly. Ray gave a thumbs up and ambled off. The new kid was probably close to 30. Marine. 2 tours. A face like thunder and eyes that flinched at sudden sound. But when Adam showed him how to steady his hand by anchoring his elbow, the man nodded without speaking and welded a perfect seam 10 minutes later. That was enough. Sometimes healing didn't start with words. It started with small wins. A straight cut, a fixed hinge, a moment of control in a world that had once felt like chaos. Later that day, Adam held the first kindness hour session, an idea Maddie had come up with. Every Friday, she had said you should let the kids and the vets hang out and teach each other things. You know, like kindness school. So that afternoon, a dozen children from local schools came by the center. Maddie was among them, her sparkly purple backpack bouncing behind her. The vets, some missing limbs, some missing years, waited at the tables, unsure at first. But then Maddie marched up to Ray, pointed at the vice clamp, and asked, "What does this do?" Within 5 minutes, the entire room came to life. Kids learned how to sand wooden blocks. A former Navy electrician taught a shy 5th grader how to wire a circuit. One little girl gave a handmade bracelet to a biker who hadn't smiled in 3 months. Adam stood in the doorway, arms crossed, heart full. Dylan approached from behind, munching on a half-burnt cookie. "Didn't think kindness had a curriculum," he said. Adam chuckled. "Apparently it does. And Maddie's the headmaster." "You've got something good here," Dylan said, growing serious. "Real good." Adam nodded. "It's not much." "No," Dylan corrected. "It's everything." That evening, a man in his 60s walked into the workshop just before closing. He moved stiffly like the world had taken more from him than he was willing to admit. "You, Adam?" he asked. "I am." The man held out a hand. "Name's Terry. I'm not here for charity. My wife passed last month, 43 years. I haven't slept since." Adam said nothing, just gestured toward an empty workbench. "We're not here to fix people," he said gently, "just to build something while they find their way back." Terry looked at the tools, the wood, the quiet hum of conversation in the back. "I used to build birdhouses," he mumbled. "Then let's start there." Terry returned the next day. And the next. And on the 4th day, he brought 3 unfinished birdhouses in a cardboard box and a photograph of his wife tucked beneath the lid. A week later, Adam was walking through town when a man in a sheriff's uniform pulled up beside him in a patrol car. "Adam Miller," the officer asked. "Yes, sir. I'm Sheriff Barnes. Just wanted to say word's going around about what you're doing at the workshop. Lot of vets falling through cracks these days. You're catching them." Adam dipped his head. "Just doing what I can." The sheriff paused. "Funny thing, you gave your last $2 to save someone you didn't know. Now folks around here are handing back thousands in donations to your center." Adam's eyes widened. Barnes grinned. "Hope you're ready." "'Cause Pine Bluff just became your headquarters." That night, Adam sat on the porch of their new house, still half unpacked but already full of life. Maddie curled up next to him with a blanket and her sketch pad. She showed him a drawing, a man standing in front of a long wooden table. Children around him, hearts floating above their heads. On the wall behind him was a sign, $2 of hope. Adam felt his throat tighten. "You like it?" she asked. He nodded. "Very much. Can I hang it at the center? I think it belongs there." She leaned against him. "I'm proud of you, Daddy." He pulled her close. "I'm proud of you, too. You're the reason I kept walking." They sat in silence under a sky now scattered with stars. The day had been long, the journey longer. But here, in this small town surrounded by tools, children, veterans, and hope, Adam Miller had finally built something no one could take from him. Not a house, not a motorcycle, not even a job, but a legacy. The first ripple came quietly. It began with a handwritten letter slipped into the mail slot of the Veterans Center. No return address. No name. Dear Mr. Miller, I watched the news story about you giving your last $2 to save a stranger's life. I'm a single mother, and last week I was down to my last 10. I saw a man sleeping outside a gas station with no shoes. I bought him socks and a sandwich. I think you reminded me who I used to be before the world made me afraid to care. Thank you for the nudge back to kindness. Sincerely, a stranger who's trying again. Adam read it 3 times. Then he pinned it on the bulletin board in the workshop beneath a sign that now read, $2 of hope. Acts of kindness. Begin here. The second ripple was louder. A local TV reporter stopped by to film a short feature about the biker miracle. It aired on the evening news. By the following week, the story had been picked up by 3 regional networks. Then it went national. Then viral. Within days, the center's inbox was flooded. Emails came from every state. A boy in Oregon who raised $200 to buy meals for homeless veterans in his city. A retired teacher in Georgia who donated her late husband's tools to their local shelter. A biker group in Michigan who launched a cross-country ride called the $2 Ride to raise money for struggling vet families. Adam sat in his modest office, staring at the screen, humbled and speechless. He had never planned to start a movement. He just couldn't walk away from a man who was falling. Soon, the workshop outgrew itself. The small town of Pine Bluff rallied in a way Adam had never seen. The city council approved expansion permits in record time. Retired carpenters offered their hands. Churches offered their basements. Even the high school offered weekend volunteers. And through it all, Adam remained steady, never chasing fame, never grabbing credit. He showed up every morning, swept the floors, repaired what broke, sat with the silent men who didn't know how to talk about war, and listened to children who only wanted to build birdhouses with their grandfathers. And when the local news station returned, cameras in tow, Adam politely declined the spotlight. I'm just a man trying to raise his daughter, right? He told them. If there's a story here, it's hers. It was Maddie who came up with the next idea. She brought it to Adam one night at dinner, placing a folded sheet of paper beside his plate of chili. What's this? He asked. It's the next step. He opened it. Inside was a rough drawing of a heart wrapped in motorcycle wheels with the words, $2 of hope. Tour bus project. She explained it fast, her words tumbling with excitement. We get a bus, Daddy, and we fill it with supplies, tools, food, first aid kits, and then we drive to small towns where veterans need help. We bring the workshop to them. Adam blinked, stunned. You want to build a mobile center? She nodded. We can't wait for people to come to us. Some people don't even know help exists. Adam smiled. You really are your mother's daughter. By the end of the month, Dylan and the Riders of Grace had sourced a decommissioned city bus from a donation in Austin. Volunteers began converting it, adding foldable benches, lockable cabinets, even a mini generator. On the side of the bus, Maddie painted the words herself in blue and white, $2 of hope, one stop at a time. By spring, the movement had grown beyond Adam's imagination. A social media account run by one of the volunteers chronicled the $2 of hope story. It gained over 500,000 followers. Kindness challenges popped up across the country. Pay it forward coffee chains, school-wide food drives, care packages to rural vet hospitals. Every time a letter arrived, every time a stranger knocked on the door of the center, asking how to help. Adam felt the same quiet disbelief. All this from a bottle of water and 2 worn dollar bills. Then came the day the governor's office called. They wanted to present Adam with a civilian medal for humanitarian service, a televised ceremony, press, applause. Adam politely declined. He asked them to donate the money they would have spent on the event to a struggling VA hospital in West Texas instead. The check arrived a week later. That Friday evening, the Veterans Center was buzzing. A returning Marine had just completed his first woodworking project, a hand-carved bench for the local park. A young girl gifted Maddie a necklace made of painted nuts and bolts. And on the bulletin board, beneath dozens of pinned letters, someone had posted a simple sticky note. Kindness doesn't cost, it multiplies. Adam recognized the handwriting. Maddie's. He smiled as she ran up, arms outstretched, and jumped into his embrace. Look, she beamed. I found my quote on a t-shirt someone made online. He held her tight. I'm not surprised, he whispered. You're changing the world one smile at a time. No, she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. We're doing it together. That night, as the last light faded from the sky, Adam stood outside the workshop alone. The stars were beginning to blink into place, and the hum of a town, at peace, buzzed gently in the distance. He looked up, whispered a quiet thank you to whatever grace had guided him from the gas station to this moment. And then he walked back inside. There were still walls to paint, still hands to hold, still hearts to rebuild. The ripple hadn't ended. It had only just begun. It was a quiet morning when Dylan came to say goodbye. No engines, no parade of bikers. Just the low growl of his Harley pulling up the gravel driveway of Adam's new home, and the familiar sound of boots on porch wood. Adam looked up from sanding a toy truck on the front step. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the smell of pine and warm earth already filled the air. Maddie was still asleep inside, curled up with a book on her chest. Dylan climbed the steps, with a certain heaviness in his stride, his leather vest slung over his shoulder, instead of worn. That alone was enough to tell Adam something had shifted. Coffee, Adam offered. Dylan nodded. Always. They sat together in the early light, 2 veterans whose wars had long passed, but whose fight for purpose never truly ended. After a few minutes, Dylan broke the silence. I'm heading to Arizona. Adam raised an eyebrow. Vacation. Dylan chuckled. Expansion. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a wrinkled blueprint. We're setting up another Riders of Grace Center, out near Flagstaff. There's a Navajo vet community there, underserved, forgotten. They need tools hands, someone who speaks their language. Adam leaned over the drawing. It was rough, but promising basic workshop layout bunks, an open-air courtyard. Looks like a mission, Adam said. It is, Dylan replied. Then after a pause, but I'm not staying. That caught Adam off guard. You're not leading it. Nope, I'm just setting the wheels in motion. I'll ride in, build it up, hand it over to someone local. Then move on. Adam looked at him carefully. You're starting over. Dylan exhaled through his nose. I'm continuing. This. He gestured toward the house. The shop. The town. This proved something to me. That what we started works. And now it's time to take it further. Plant the next seed. Adam leaned back, absorbing it all. You think you'll ever settle? Dylan smiled, eyes distant. Maybe one day. But right now, I think the road still needs me more than the porch does. They sat in silence for a while. Then Dylan stood, pulled something small from his pocket, and placed it in Adam's hand. A silver badge, etched with 2 simple words, family chosen. It's what I give to the people who don't have to love me but do anyway, Dylan said. You've earned it. Maddie too. Adam turned the badge over slowly. It was smooth solid, the kind of thing that fit in your palm but lived in your chest. "I don't know what to say," he murmured. "You don't have to," Dylan said, gripping his shoulder. "Just keep doing what you're doing. You've built something here no one else could. And people need to know it's possible." Adam looked him in the eye. "You sure you don't want to stay? There's always room for more." Dylan smiled, but there was a quiet sadness behind it. "This town has a shepherd now. My job's done here." Then, after a beat, he added, "Besides, I never wanted to be the hero. I just wanted to know I mattered." "You do," Adam said. "To more people than you realize." Maddie ran out just as Dylan was starting up his Harley. "You're leaving?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. He turned off the engine. "Just for a while, little lady. There are more places that need kindness." She hugged him tightly. "You better come back." "I will," Dylan promised, hugging her back. "And when I do, I want to see one of your kindness clubs in every school in the state." Maddie grinned. "Deal." Before climbing onto his bike, Dylan turned to Adam one last time. "You turned a bottle of water into a flood of hope. Don't ever forget that." Adam gave a small nod, emotion swelling in his throat. With a final salute, Dylan rode off into the golden morning, his silhouette framed against the rising sun, the echo of his engine fading into the horizon like a hymn. That afternoon, Adam sat with Maddie under the old oak behind the house. She rested her head on his lap as they watched the wind move through the trees. "Do you miss him already?" she asked. Adam thought about it. "Yes," he said, honestly. "But I'm also proud. He found his way back to who he was." Maddie played with the silver badge Dylan had left behind. "I think some people come into our lives not to stay, but to help us become who we're meant to be." Adam looked down at her, stunned by the clarity of her words. "You're pretty wise for 8, she shrugged. "You talk a lot when you sleep." He laughed, a full, unguarded laugh that shook something loose in his chest. Then he grew quiet, contemplative. "You know, Maddie, I spent years thinking I had nothing left to offer, that I'd done all the good I could in the world." She looked up. "And now I know it's just beginning." That night, Adam stood outside the workshop looking up at the stars. One twinkled brighter than the rest, steady, defiant. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the need to chase anything. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was rooted. Because sometimes the bravest ride is the one where you stay. 10 years later. The air was still the same in Pine Bluff, crisp in the morning sweet, with the scent of honeysuckle by afternoon. But the town had changed. Quietly. Beautifully. What used to be an abandoned warehouse district was now the Miller House Center for Healing and Purpose, a sprawling space of glass and warm wood, humming with laughter tools and conversations that mattered. Inside were classrooms, a training facility, therapy rooms, and the now famous Workshop of Hope, still run by veterans, still powered by kindness. On this particular day, a crowd had gathered beneath the fluttering American and POW MIA flags. Cameras were discreet. Local news crews whispered to each other respectful. At the front stood a young woman barely 18, but already carrying herself like someone who had seen more than her years would suggest. Her name tag read, Maddie Miller, Director of Youth Initiatives. Her brown eyes scanned the rows of chairs until they settled on the man seated in the front row. Adam. Now older, with streaks of gray in his beard, but still wearing his olive field jacket. Still calm. Still centered. A quiet mountain in a changing world. Maddie stepped up to the podium. The breeze lifted her hair slightly as she took a deep breath. "Good afternoon, everyone," she said, her voice strong, clear. It's an honor to welcome you to the official dedication of the Legacy Hall inside the Miller House, a space to remember how all of this began." She gestured behind her, and two large double doors opened. Inside, photographs, handwritten letters, children's drawings, old patches, and helmets, all framed with care. But at the very center of the hall, behind a glass case, softly lit with warm LEDs, was a battered, empty plastic water bottle. Below it, a brass plaque read, "In this bottle lived the moment everything changed." Donated by Adam Miller. The crowd fell silent. Then Maddie spoke again. "Some people think a legacy comes from power, money, or recognition. But I was raised by a man who taught me something different. That sometimes the biggest waves begin with the smallest drops." She paused, letting her gaze settle on the bottle again. 10 years ago, my father gave away his last $2 to buy water and aspirin for a stranger slumped beside a gas pump. That choice, not calculated, not strategic, but simply kind, saved a life. She looked to Dylan in the front row, older now, seated beside his grown niece, Jason Archer's daughter, who held a violin case in her lap. And from that life, saved, came another. Then another, until $2 turned into 200 riders, then 2,000 volunteers, then a ripple across the country, then, eventually, this. She gestured to the building around them. To some, it was just a water bottle. To me, it was a compass. It told me who my father really was, who we could be. Tears welled in Adam's eyes, though he didn't blink them away. Not this time. After the ceremony, as the crowd thinned and the sun dipped low, Adam wandered into the Legacy Hall alone. The water bottle stood in its case like a relic from another world. He stared at it quiet. Then Maddie appeared beside him. She slid her hand into his. "You okay, Dad?" He nodded. "I'm proud of you." She smiled. "You started it." "No," he said, his voice low. "I just didn't walk away." A pause. "I thought that bottle was the last thing I had left. Turned out, it was the beginning of everything." Maddie rested her head on his shoulder. "I think Mom would have been proud." He didn't reply. He couldn't. But he knew it was true. That night, as twilight blanketed the town in soft indigo, Adam sat on the back porch of his modest house. Same place, same oak tree, but the silence now felt earned. He watched as motorcycles rode slowly past on the nearby road lights. Low engines, soft like a slow-moving vigil of gratitude. Maddie came out with 2 mugs of tea. She handed him one, then pointed at the sky. "See that star, bright one?" "Yeah. I always imagine it's Jason, watching us." Adam smiled. "Then he's probably smiling." "And Dylan?" "He'll be back soon." Said the Flagstaff Center's nearly done. Maddie grinned. "I'm thinking of expanding the mobile bus project to cover the Southwest. You never stop dreaming, do you?" She winked. "You started that too." As they sipped in silence, Maddie pulled something from her pocket. A folded note. Faded. Carefully taped at the edges. She opened it. It was her handwriting from 10 years ago. The one she had written behind a framed photo on Adam's first Father's Day after the gas station moment. He read it aloud, his voice. Steady. "Kindness doesn't cost. It multiplies." He looked at her. "You still believe that?" She nodded. More than ever. Adam exhaled slowly, the weight of a decade falling gently away, like ash from an old fire. And somewhere in the distance, a dove flew across the amber sky. The kind of ending that isn't an end at all, just a gentle continuation of something beautiful that began with $2 a plastic bottle and a man who refused to walk away. We'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and share a little piece of your story. This channel is more than just videos. It's a community of people who still believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing what's right. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing to Soul Moment Story. We share true-to-life inspirational tales, just like this one. Stories that remind us all that it's never too late to make a difference. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and don't forget even the smallest act of kindness can ripple across a lifetime.